Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of Leadership Incorporated, and your host for the Voice of Leadership and for Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. My company, Leadership Incorporated, turned 29 years old on the 1st of April, and as part of the birthday celebration, I'm unveiling a new artwork specifically and specially designed, commissioned, and painted for Trans Leadership Inc. by UK-based artist and prior Voice of Leadership guest, Lewis Parsons. I am delighted to have Lewis here to celebrate the Trans Leadership birthday with me. Lewis Parsons uses the power of art to inspire people and organizations to co-create a world of deeper harmony and success. He passionately believes there is an emerging movement which he terms the Soul Renaissance. Through his talks, workshops, and art, Parsons unlocks our ability to see the unique symphony of light that resides inside all of us. He brings simplicity and clarity to empower his audience to find greater energy in their lives. Lewis's art commissions can be found all over the world, including with celebrities, world-class surfing athletes, and leading-edge philosophers such as Karren Brady, Tom Curren, and Ken Wilber, and now also with Trans Leadership Inc. And for the last 9 years or so, he has been the guest artist for Four Seasons Kuda Huraa Maldives and Four Seasons Serengeti, where he's still active at Four Seasons Serengeti. One of his favorite achievements is having one of his artwork pieces auctioned for charity, raising £120,000. And when he isn't painting, Lewis loves to surf and scuba dive, seeking inspiration from all the color and vibrancy of the waves. He lives in Cheltenham, UK, at the foot of the Cotswold Hills with his beautiful wife and family. So, Lewis, welcome back to the Voice of Leadership and to Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. And thank you so much for celebrating the 29th birthday of Trans Leadership with me.
Thanks, Karen. It's great to be here. And it's great to see you color coding yourself with the soulscape that we created. That's awesome.
It is amazing. I love that we are coordinated and aligned. Maybe we'll put it that way. So, Lewis,
Mm,
what I'm hoping we do today is I'm hoping that we're going to take our guests backstage so that they get to hear how we created this art piece together and also get to learn a little bit about the meaning of it, what it means. And they can also add their 2 cents worth too, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But first, I know that when you're creating art, you go through the soulscaping process with your guests, and you went through that with me. So, first, let's remind people about the definition of soulscaping, and then let's talk about what you did with me in terms of soulscaping.
great. Yeah, thank you. So the first step, I only ever know the first question I'm going to ask, which is imagine you had the perfect work of art and that it lights you up. What would you want to experience in that painting? And so that can either be with reference to an individual, a couple, a family, some moment in nature or life. And of course, it can be the soul of an organization or the soul of a company. And so I start with that question, and then I never really know what the next question is until that person's responded. And often there's like a couple of intuitions that come out. At first, you might feel like we don't know the answer to that question, but actually, it's amazing to me how much there is inside us and just how much a single question can unlock that power and potential in us. And then from that place, I will then create a small oil pastel and acrylic piece which reflects back what the essence of that person has shared. So that's the first hit. It's like a soul impression, if you like. It's the impression that I got while someone was sharing. I'm intuitive and I'm tuned in, and what I want to do is pay attention to you, to the space between us and what's coming up in me. And I kind of see that in terms of color and light as someone is speaking. It's not necessarily about the words that someone says, it's something about their presence or the presence of what they're sharing and the colors and patterns that come through that. Just I honestly don't know how or why that happens. I think I know, and then something happens. You're like, I have no idea how this happens. I'm just really joyous that it does. I'm very happy for that gift. And then the stage beyond that, assuming you completely love the first soul impression, which of course you did, I then end up creating it as an oil on canvas piece at any kind of size. So it can be on the smaller end of the spectrum or far larger, depending on what's required of you, what's required of the space, what's required of where you want to travel to. Sometimes a larger piece can help you travel in different ways, and sometimes a more intimate piece can be quite nice and very personal. That's the soul scoping process in a nutshell.
Thank you, Lewis. Let me share something as you've been talking about that question about imagining that the artwork has already existed and what would my experience be. I'd like to share the kind of words I said to you. I said words like inspiration, attraction, transformation, hope, power, energy, calling, enthusiasm, and possibility. Those were my words. And what I was really thinking about, Lewis, and for those who are listening, I was thinking about the fact that in the work that I do, which is based on transformation, the company's name stands for Leadership Transformations and is based on a Bible verse, Romans 12:2, which talks about be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so I wanted to have a painting that captured this process of God coming in with a heavenly light. And that's important because I'm working out of a Christian mindset and frame of reference. And we know that when God created the world, it was in total darkness. And then he's the one that brought the light in. And so the light to me just reminds me of a heavenly presence. So that's what I was thinking about. And I wanted to have the world lit up by God's heavenly presence.
It's amazing actually hearing you say again the words and what those words mean to you, and actually then to look across to the painting behind you. It's interesting. At this stage, it almost feels as though someone else has created it. And I often feel like these artworks are kind of created through me, I suppose. As I look at that, as I consider some of the words, so for example, the light and the inspiration for me, I'm almost reminded of that quality of the light coming down through water, and the water can often represent the mind, right? It can represent that realm of fluid being that we relate to with our thoughts. And some parts of that mind can be darkened. It can be in dark places, and sometimes the deeper we go, there can be darkened areas and places that we weren't aware that need to be brought to the light. And so, then to see that light, if you like, piercing that water, or not even piercing, but sometimes just kind of gently emanating into that water and revealing those depths, that in itself is something of a transformative experience, right? I mean, I guess who hasn't been transformed in some small way when you dive into an ocean or a river, or let alone when someone's presence or someone's words, or maybe even just a coaching phrase, or something unlocks something within you, right? I think many of us can kind of relate to that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in my case, I was thinking more of a celestial scene, the heavens as
Mm,
opposed to like a water scene. And I know we talked
mm,
about that in this sense because often you will represent the depths of the water with much darker colors. And I wanted to have more
mm.
of a heavenly scape where the colors were a little lighter, a little bit brighter. And we know that even a small amount of light kind of chases away the darkness when we're thinking about, from a heavenly perspective or a heaven viewpoint. So that was one of the things I was thinking about. And then we also talked about what kind of metaphor would this be in a sense? And for me, it was you sometimes paint figures or people or sort of like images of people in the painting. And I wanted one that would be more of a metaphor. You could assume some things about the transformation of people without really having people in the picture. And so that
Mm.
was also a part of how we talked about it and what it might look like and what was, the message that would be conveyed. And in my case, I
Mm.
wanted a smaller painting because the space above me is smaller. and and I also have what I'll call a carrying size version of it, so that if I go somewhere and I'm meeting with a client or whatever, and if I want to show them this, I can take the small picture with me and we can talk about that as well. So I was thinking about a small escape as opposed to, let's say, if you're in a big, huge, gigantic office building or a museum or someplace like that. So that was part of it as well.
Yeah, it's in, so the heavens are often associated with the sky, right? With air, with the heavenly clouds, with light kind of pouring through clouds, and of course there's a paler, almost kind of ozone color associated with that, which we carried across to your piece, which is kind of nice to kind of bring those realms together to have that very celestial presence. And I think that the notion of inspiration as well, that that light is kind of like a carrier, or is like it's a transmission of something imbued with inspiration and light. It's almost that's what words at their best can be. They're like a frequency that can just transmit something golden from one place to another. Of course, artwork and music can be like that too. When coming from the right intention, maybe a prayerful intention or some other kind of intention. But the quality of that, I remember, really kind of delicately trying to translate into the canvas, especially in the staining process. You build it up on patterns and layers. And some of the beautiful thing about that is there's these layerings of happy accidents that happen that you're not really in control of. And nature, if you like, or something beyond you starts to take over and just things happen that are a surprise, a beautiful, spontaneous surprise. But that's also part of inspiration. That's also part of letting light come in through you, through your words, through an artwork and crystallize and take the form of something that, you hopefully you would want to share with your client, with your organization, or with someone else. Because it's interesting you say about the figures, because the moment you put a figure in a piece, then it changes the whole dynamic, which can be absolutely right and powerful and beautiful to do so. But it changes the whole thing into some kind of landscape or seascape or soulscape, of course. But the nice thing as well about just having something purely abstract is it really opens, especially if you're going to use it in the way you're going to use it, which is asking people how they will personally respond to this. They can put their own feelings and their own thoughts into that. And it's amazing the power of an image to unlock what's inside someone. I'm kind of intrigued as well. Now it's been in your space for a while and you've had the image with you. I'm just intrigued to know what's changed or evolved or lit up in you. What's changed now that those words have become like many people, we can have a written mission statement and we can have something written down, but it's very different then to have that translated into something like an artwork. So I'm intrigued to know what's changed with you as a result of that.
You may know that every year I have what I call the word of the year. And I think that the painting influenced the word of the year this year because the word I selected was light. And I talked about the
Mm.
trifecta of light, how light really leads to God's love, and love leads to life, and life, even in an eternal sense. So you've got the three L's: light, love, and life. And I think the painting is a picture of that. And it's a reminder of what I'm doing with clients, which is to accelerate and elevate impact, for them and their work and how they're going about things. And many times my clients are in a situation where things look really dark and they don't see the way through and the way out of it. And I want them to be inspired that the light of God is shining on it all the time. We can connect with that and we can go from where we are to a different place. So I think it's just connects with that picture of light that's important to me.
Yeah, that's really amazing you say that. I've been thinking a lot about light and well, I guess it's beyond thinking. You start to experience the notion that everything, literally everything, from the very, very subtle, from the heart of God through to all form is made out of light, right? Various layers of light in various layers of density. And so to consider that, I like that trifecta actually. That's gorgeous, of light and love and life all interacting. It's like they're all woven together into that light, that the love's woven into it and the life is woven into it. And that there's a powerful intelligence in all of that light that has made everything around us and puts that light of inspiration in us. I think that that's a beautiful thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a couple of other words that I think about that are also important in terms of the work that I'm doing. And of course, one of the words is transform. And transform
Mm,
is you're changing, something is shifting, and then transcend, because you're rising above even some of the earthly planes of what's going on. You're transcending, I would say, getting past Earth's atmosphere, the pull and the drag that pulls us back down sometimes. You transcend through that. And once you go through that barrier, then you ascend. And when you ascend, the kinds of thoughts that can come to you are the possibilities that we wouldn't necessarily think of on our own without God showing us a greater possibility than what we can see when we're just totally in an earthly space. So when you engage in some heavenly light, then you're going to see and experience greater options because with God, all things are possible and nothing is impossible. And as he says, his thoughts and his ways are high above ours. So when we're connected with God, we see what we don't see if we're not connected. So I see that part transform and transcend and ascend as well.
mm. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's beautiful. And it's funny because, again, and sometimes this happens in our conversations, they sometimes run in parallel to the things that we've been previously considering. And one of the things that's been really important, well, for my art and actually for some of my recent healing processes, is the realization that light descends as well, right? That it actually kind of reaches in, actively reaches in to touch and surround. And in fact, there's a beautiful and incredible metaphor that was shared with me about how we perceive light, right? So that the center of the eye is completely dark. It's a theater of darkness, if you like. And the only way we're able to perceive any kind of light is because of that darkness. And even taking that thought a little further, that really darkness is in a sense, it's very dense light. It's another quality of light that's very, very, it's not even dense. It's just off our ability to measure. When we look up at the night sky and we see there's darkness and we think there's a vacuum, that actually there's no vacuum at all. It's packed full of intelligence, information, waveforms, particles, just things that are beyond our way of perceiving and our way of seeing. And actually, something really beautiful happens in that process of transformation when light and darkness connect, and that actually they touch one another. They almost it's like the light gets earthed and becomes even more real. And yet, if it was all light all the time, I wonder what would happen to life. We're this beautiful synthesis of and combination of all of those, wavelengths of light, if you like, together. And that just makes me marvel at the design and the creation, and the intricacy and the joy in the astonishing building of any kind of form of light. And to think as humans, we have this beautiful way of participating, if you like, this kind of God-given ability to create this way, to bring almost more light into the process. That word transformation can mean many things to many people, can't it? But the sense of the light kind of touching in and then folding around and changing the darkness. I love that picture very much. And of course, color is the filling in wavelength between those two opposites. So it's surrounding us the whole time. We would have no depth perception unless there was shadow alongside the light.
And that's certainly true in an earthly sense. And so, what I like about what you said, and I'm going to build on it, when you were talking about the light of God coming down, that's very relevant because, in a Christian perspective, we don't have the ability to go from where we are up to God in and of ourselves. And in fact, when the people were building the Tower of Babel in the Bible and trying to reach God, he stopped them. It's like, you can't reach me. And he already knew he was going to reach us by sending, Jesus the Messiah to come down as that ultimate light. So God comes to us so that we can then access him and then join him. And it's as if to say, God becomes our vehicle to go to the heavens where he is, and we can't get there apart from him, so to speak. Some other words that I reflected on later, I'd mentioned the inspiration, attraction, and transformation, hope, and so on. Later on, I was thinking about this notion of God coming to earth. I was thinking about heavenly light. I was thinking about celestial light, light piercing the darkness. And I was thinking about this notion that the Bible describes where God himself dwells in unapproachable light. And the light in heaven is so bright that there's no need for a sun there because God is the light of heaven. God himself is the sun. And now we have the seasons and the cycles of light and darkness. And our bodies probably need that because we have to rest here and various other things. When we get into the heavenly space and we have our supernatural heavenly bodies, we will be able to handle light all the time. Whereas here, maybe we
Mm,
couldn't do that. So the light of God is going to brighten up the heavens in a way that we haven't seen before here on earth. Just like when Jesus was transfigured on the mountain with his three closest associates with him, the light of his clothing was so bright, there was no color white or light like that even available on the earth. So even if you had bleached something as white as it could be or as light as it could be, it would pale in comparison to the light that was shining on him in this transfiguration experience. So we are the royal priesthood of God, and the darkness has really transformed us into not just a royal light, but I even think a royal blue of sorts, because we are part of that, the
mm.
kingdom of priests.
Yeah, I love blue. When I tend to have free reign to create something, should we say, for me, I don't know, there's a natural kind of gravitation to the realm of blues. And I mean, I love all the colors, don't get me wrong, but there's something about, the blues of the oceans and the blues of just that beautiful viscosity of waters and heavens. And yeah, it's interesting because I wonder as well whether that moment of transfiguration is also again is about the possibility of us having that light inside us whilst being here. And in fact, it seems to me, and especially using that picture from the book of Revelation, that heaven seems to descend to earth. There's also, and depending on how you feel about the Gnostic Gospels, there's a really amazing phrase that Jesus uses, which is the kingdom of heaven, or if you like, the kingdom of God stretches out over this earth, but men can't see it. And there's something about, when you see how he walks and how he operates and these moments where does these incredible, wonderful things, that he's so filled with that light that it almost reveals this world of light and this possibility of participating with a world of light that's already here, but that we can't currently see. And
Mhm.
that excites me. That excites me as an artist. That excites me as a creator. That excites me as someone with imagination that, what one of the, if you like, the scourges of our time is anxiety and levels of anxiety and worry and depression. And actually, I think that's partly because we don't unfurl the wings of our imagination into the full possibility of what they're here for, which is this, if you like, God-given, God imbued ability to be able to see and feel and experience these incredible, beautiful realms of light that are in beautiful synchronicity with the world that's here. So we're not just waiting on a rock, to just pass on to another place. Of course, there's always that promise, but like that actually part of our participation as artists, speakers, coaches, whatever it would be, is to bring more and more of that light into this realm and to do anything we can to light a flame towards it. And whether it is, painting or speaking or loving or looking an eye or touching someone's hand in a certain way, that those are the soul qualities, those heavenly qualities that get transmitted from one another when we do that. And it's, the fact that we have lost touch with, I mean, generally speaking, of course, there's more and more and more and more people that are more and more in touch with this than ever before in certain ways. Um, but like to see that network of light and to know that we can be held and supported by it, that light is love, that light is life, is an extraordinary revelation. And it changes the way you look and feel and experience everything around us.
That is completely true. In fact, I think that in the language that I would speak, I would describe it as the more we're in tune with and in touch with and filled with the Spirit of God, the Holy Spirit,
Mm.
the more ability we have to connect with the light that you're talking about and to experience the divine and the supernatural here on earth. I do think that's a real reality. And some people are more connected than others. Some people get to see more than others. And as you say, it's here. We just may not always have, as Jesus would say, and sometimes and also in the Old Testament would say, eyes to see and ears to
Mm.
hear, all that is around us. And that's given in a spiritual sense, those abilities. And then, of course, our ability later. And Jesus demonstrated this when he was resurrected from the grave that, he was able to do amazing things. He could walk through walls, he could transport himself suddenly from one place to the next. So there is a realm that we are not as in touch with, most of us, every day, that some of it is possible now. And I think there'll be even
Mm.
greater possibilities later because we don't even have the bodies that can handle all that God can do and manifest until later. Yeah, so we're going deep with all this stuff.
Yeah, we are. I was just thinking that.
So I want to share something. It's in the form of a chorus to a song because I remember in childhood, we used to sing this song in church. And so I'm just going to sing a little bit of it just to get into the vibe of it. And went something like this. Heavenly sunlight, heavenly sunlight, flooding my soul with glory divine. Hallelujah. Singing his praises, Jesus is mine. Now, that song was written in 1899. It's an old one, but we used to sing that. And so when I think about the painting, I was thinking today when I woke up, I was thinking about Heavenly Sunlight, and that song came to mind.
Wow.
And, that's just the chorus of it, but it has a number of different verses and so on, just to remember that we have access to God's heavenly sunlight. It's just a beautiful thought to me.
Wow, that's beautiful. And you've got a beautiful voice. Thank
Oh
you for
my, thank
singing
you.
it.
Oh, so anyway, and so as we're thinking about this, and one thing I haven't done, Louis, I have not named the painting. I haven't
Mm.
named it yet or given it a name. We know that it's about transformation, being transformed. It's about the light and reflecting the light and God's light. And so I really want people who are listening to write in and write to me and let me know, well, what do they think the name of this painting should be in light of everything that we've been talking about? Because it really can have a number of different names. And I also want people to think about the orientation of the painting. So, right now, we've got a picture of the painting, and it's a little bit easier to see because now we've got it on the screen. And when you look at the painting this way, you can see that the light is pouring in, if you will, from heaven. And you see the deep strands of gold that are coming down. And actually, one of the pictures in my mind that I see, I don't know if you remember these or if you've ever even been to them, but there are these old homes owned by ancient, well, millionaires from the United States. And they have these houses off in New England, up in Rhode Island, and other places. And Europe has a lot of buildings like this too, where the ceiling inside the building is painted in this heavenly kind of color. And you'll see little angels and cherubs and all that built in. And you'll see the different shades of the yellow and the gold and clouds and sky. And often you'll see that, especially like on a domed building, right above, and the ceiling is made that way. And so when I think about these colors and I think about the way it's shining, that's one of the images that comes to mind when I look at the painting. And this is the primary orientation of it. This is the way in which you painted it, Lewis. And maybe you might just share a little bit about what you were thinking about when you painted it this way. And I know it's based on everything we were talking about in the Soulscape experience. So maybe just share your insights.
Yeah, so I guess again, it's just that thought of the descending light, and I wanted it to have a certain orientation where it almost looked like you were following the light in and down. So you're kind of looking in and downward as you're kind of following it from the top right down to the left, but it's almost like folding in a little bit to the center.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you and I discovered together that the painting also could have a horizontal orientation and where the light is coming in from the left side. And so, in a minute or so, we're going to change the view so people can see the painting in the horizontal format. And since, Lewis and I are talking about this painting in vertical and horizontal, some of you normally listen to this podcast in an audio format. This might be a day you might want to watch the podcast on YouTube or possibly on Raven International Television so that you can actually see what we're seeing. And of course, if you are connected to us by email or on social media, we will include a visual as well so that you can follow along with what we're saying. So now we can see from a horizontal view, the light is coming from the top left and coming down into the earth realm. And this is a powerful view of the painting as well. And I thank you, Lewis, because you gave me options. I can hang it in both directions if I want, because we were
Yeah.
looking at it in both directions and we liked it in both directions. So, what else emerged for you when you saw the horizontal version?
So now I feel as though you can see the curvature of the earth, and it's like you're kind of zooming and flying into it, like from the light to some kind of delicate horizon at an angle. It's almost, it could be because I've been watching a lot of sci-fi recently. Well, it's not recently, I'm watching it all the time, but because I love the qualities of light that come through in this. But this, yeah, there's something about reaching in and toward a horizon of possibility, but it is making me want to tilt my head like this.
Does that suggest that you personally prefer the vertical way in which it was created?
I think I do. I think I do because, yeah, that was the way I was obviously creating it. But it's not the first time that I've created a painting and then changed the orientation and thought, oh, I really like it this way too. And some I've even turned upside down, although there were figures in the center and reflections of the figures, so it worked quite well. But yeah, I don't know. I really like it this way, I've got to say, and surprisingly so. But because of it's probably a certain amount of bias because I was so focused on creating it the other way. But I could easily, I guess, get used to seeing it this way. I think it's got a lot in it this way for sure.
Yeah, it's quite dynamic in this direction as well. So, those of you
Mm.
who are watching and listening, I'm going to invite you to also weigh in on that. You got two things you can weigh in on. What do you think the painting should be called? We haven't named it yet. And do you prefer the vertical or the horizontal orientation? So you can let me know and reach out, and you can reach out to me on Dr. Karren, Dr. period Karen at transleadership.com. You can also reach out on social media. Those of you who get my social media messages and postings, you know where to reach me on all of those channels as well. And just tell us what you think. Vertical, horizontal, what name comes to mind? And we'll have a naming ceremony at some point and talk about it. I think the painting can be vertical or horizontal. So some days people may come and speak with me and see it horizontal, and other days they might see it vertical. So it's because I'm really able to relate to both. And I want to just mention something, but this is the Trans Leadership business card. And you'll see the royal blue on the far left, and then there's gold. That's actually gold foil in the middle. And what's interesting is that it's a movement from darkness into light. And so that kind of goes with the theme of the company moving from darkness to light. And so that I think I just wanted to also mention that it kind of goes with who we are and who we've been over the last 29 years. Yeah. So, Lewis, let me ask you this. You do soulscapes all the time. What was it like for you to participate in and do the soulscape with me about this particular painting and work of art?
I think there was a real ease in connecting with you on this. I mean, that sometimes it can take a little while to unearth the themes that want to be brought into a piece, but there was a real clarity there. So that was a lot of fun. I think also there's a lot of, for me, if there's any sense of spirituality and depth in what's being shared, then that greatly aids my inspiration too. It was a really effortless creation, and this happens sometimes, right? Sometimes they can be quite challenging, which I actually quite like to be challenged and pushed by. It's like you're in conversation with the painting. It can push you in different directions, but this was quite different. It just really flowed quite effortlessly. And even the way the painting dried at certain times, it was almost just a bit of a gift how it layered itself. So that really stands out in my mind.
That's great. And what was fun for me, Lewis, is I've never had a commissioned painting before. And so it was fun to be able to share ideas and to know that somehow it would be represented in the painting, even though I'm not a painter, so I don't paint, but we were co-creating it together through the words that we shared, the thoughts that we shared, the experience, and then you are representing everything that we talked about in the actual painting itself. So I think that's fun. And I know that you do this type of work for many people. And so let people know how they can reach you. And if they want to get their own commissioned painting, what they need to do and what's the process.
Sure. So I do between 5 and 10 commissions in a year typically. And the best way to get in touch is via my email address. So that's Lewis, which is Louis, which is very confusing for some people, but it's Louis at lewisparsons.com. And you can contact me on the website as well, lewisparsons.com. And the first part of it is to have an initial conversation and see what feels right for you. If you're drawn to the artwork and drawn to the artwork that's on the website, then I see those as flowers, right? They will attract the kind of people that are drawn to this work or not. And then following that first conversation, if it feels right, we can go into the process together. It's got to feel right for you and for me as well. I want it to make sure that, my energies and your energies are really connected in wanting to create something beautiful. So that would be amazing. And it'd be fantastic to hear from you.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And what I hope I'm able to do, I haven't figured out how to do this yet. I'd love to create some note cards that have this image on them. And then I can write to people from my own trans leadership painting. So, in sort of like wrapping things up today, Lewis, and what we're talking about, what else would you like to share with people about anything that we've been talking about today? And as you're thinking about the members of the audience who are corporate executives and what a painting might even mean to their business, what might you share?
Especially for those who are in the corporate world, you might not initially think, well, a painting's going to really change things. But it's actually way more than a painting. It's actually more the exploration with that which is truly valuable and truly important to you and the organization, to those, if you like, those soul qualities that are often, they permeate the culture. And to actually have something that captures the heart and soul of those, which is agreed upon, maybe not just with you, but a number of people that are, if you like, the key perspective holders, to then have something created that then enables you and those around you to kind of get behind, to see your place in the bigger picture, can have really quite powerful effects. And certainly it seems to have had something of an effect with Microsoft, and to a certain extent with some of the leadership workshop work I did with Google too. And I'm not the first to kind of shout from the rooftops about it. I prefer to let other people share their experiences of it. But all I can say is that this realm of light is very real. And the more and more we're in contact with it, the more and more it can only bring huge amounts of benefit and inspiration and abundance to those who want to connect with it. So it's just a real joy and an honor to engage with people who are willing to participate in that process.
I love what you said because you can go beyond just the words on the page from your vision statement, your purpose, or your mission statement, or whatever it is that you're conveying in the organization. And if it has a visual, like a picture to go with it, when we think about vision, it's something that you can see. This just adds to the depth of that message. And different people will, I'd say, connect with that message through different portals, whether it be through words, whether it be through images. You're involving both the left and the right side of the brain, if you will, for a more
Mm.
total experience when you have both the words and the images together. And so I think that's a powerful way to think about what the possibilities are for corporations.
No, thank you. And I love you use the word portal there. I think in their purest form, that's exactly what soulscapes are. They're portals of light. They engage us, they engage our imaginations, and they can take us to places, but we can also bring ourselves to those artworks and let that light get built in us. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And I would even encourage people who might want to think about how could they make a painting, do a soulscape experience that's even for their family. Who is our family
Mm,
and who are we and what do we stand for? What are our values? So there are endless possibilities about what people can create and have something that's meaningful. And that in the case of a family that's passed down and lasts many generations. And when the children are thinking about, well, who are we? What's our family about? They can reference the painting and have that conversation with someone as they're sharing.
mm.
So I see multiple applications. And Lewis, I hope that people will contact you and have a wonderful experience exploring what their soulscape is and what the message is that God is transmitting to them. So I want to thank you for my experience. Thank you for the creation of the painting. And I will keep you posted on what people end up saying in terms of their reflections and what they ultimately share with me.
That's great. Thank you. And it's been a real joy going through this process with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lewis. This birthday would not be special or the same without you being here, sharing it with me for 29 years of trans leadership. And I just thank you for sharing the space and for creating something wonderful and beautiful that we can celebrate, not only this year, but going forward as well. So thank you so much. So I would like to close today with a Bible verse that I think is very fitting for everything that we've been talking about with the painting. This comes from Psalm, the 19th chapter, and verse 1. And it says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork." And so every day, as you look up in the sky and see what God is painting for us, I hope that you will enjoy his handiwork and his glory. And we're just capturing a little sliver of it in this painting, but he is the painter who paints every day. And we get to experience God every day if we would take the time, have the eyes to see, and the ears to hear. So have a blessed day full of the light of God, and may He continue to lead and guide you in the way that He would have you to go. See you next time. Hi, this is Dr. Karren Wilson Starks, President and CEO of TransLeadership Incorporated. And I want to let you know that I am running a special promotion right now. If you are a CEO or executive leader in a medium to large size company and you care about how your people are treated, and especially if you share our biblical values, and right now, you may be facing difficult decisions where you want some additional perspective. You may be planning for succession in your company and developing people and preparing the organization for that succession. Or perhaps right now you're going through change. You're leading change. Maybe there's a merger, there's an acquisition. Whatever you're facing in terms of leadership, including developing your executive team, contact me, give me a call so we can do a discovery meeting to see what's going on. And here's the special promotion. The promotion is that in addition to your discovery time, I will interview up to 3 people, additional people from your executive team, so you have even greater context and feedback about where to go next. So reach out to me at Dr. Karren, Dr. period, Karen, at transleadership.com or phone me at 719-534-0949, extension 1. I look forward to hearing from you and to coming alongside you to complete and continue your leadership journey with a positivity and profitability in your organization. Hi, it's Dr. Karren here. Did you know that you can mine the lessons from your own life and work experiences to inspire your teams and your people? So, in my book, Lead Yourself First, the Senior Leader's Guide to Engaging Your People for Greater Performance and Impact, I share snippets of my life experiences from childhood all the way up to adulthood. I also share what I learned from these experiences, how that learning informs how I lead today, and I share some examples of how I facilitate my client success with these same principles. So I invite you also to apply the same methodology to your life with reflection questions at the end of each chapter. So when you lead yourself first, you then have a foundation for leading others. In chapter 2, which is called Run Your Own Race, I share some stories from my days as an active duty Army officer when my approach to running the 2 miles for the physical training test and also my approach for the 12-mile forced road march had to be different from what other people did. So what I would say is dare to be different. Find your own success formula. Sometimes what works for you is different from what works for others. So remember to run your own race and remember to get your own copy of Lead Yourself First, and you'll find resources for how to run your own race. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karren Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.